Beyond the Wrench with Jay Goninen from WrenchWay.
This week's podcast episode is brought to us by Collabtic. Collabtic is a modern collaboration, training, and support platform for service organizations and technicians. It is designed to enable service organizations to retain and grow valuable knowledge to give technicians the confidence and insight they need to service customers. We really want to thank Collabtic for being a sponsor of this week's episode, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Wrench. My name is Jay Goninen, and I am your host. On today's episode, I am joined by somebody that I've had some pretty interesting conversations with and a lot of fun. Always have fun with Marshall, but able to kind of talk about some things from the perspective of a technician. And I think for a lot of you shops that are out there listening, I think this will be really helpful for you. And for a lot of you technicians out there, I think it might give you some different perspective on how to handle some of the young people that come into your shop. So Marshall Sheldon, how are you doing today?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm good. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you live at? Where are you calling us in from?
I live in Georgia, but I spent most of my life in the Midwest, Wyoming and Colorado area.
All right. So little backstory. You started off really in the military, right?
Yeah. So I was in the Marine Corps first, and I was in motor T. And so when I got out, I felt like I took a hiatus for a while, and I didn't really do anything for probably like 6 months, and just kind of just try to be a normal person, because it's definitely different,
Yeah. So what were you doing in the Marine Corps?
So I was in motor T, which is, I drove trucks in the Marine Corps. So.
All right. And how does this segue into you working on stuff? Like what was it that got you interested in just kind of getting your hands dirty and diving in and actually doing the work?
Right. So like I said, I took that break, and then my girlfriend had got pregnant, and so I was just like, well, I need to get a job, obviously. So I got a job, and I worked, actually, before I started working on trucks, I worked and like a respite home for like disabled people.
Oh, wow.
And yeah. So I did that. That was my first job out of the Marine Corps. I don't know. I felt like it was like a karma thing. I need to get some good karma. But so I did that for a little bit, and I loved it. I really did. I really loved it. But I don't know. I felt the connection to trucks because of the Marine Corps, and I was comfortable with trucks, and it was something that I knew. And so I found an ad in the newspaper. It sounds a little cliche, but in 2005, the phones weren't even close to as good as they are now.
The iPhone was 2 years later. Yeah.
yeah. So it was, so I found it was an ad in the newspaper, and I just drove over there like you did back then. You went to the place, and the foreman came up front, and him and I talked for a little while, and he was like, well, yeah, they was looking for a wash hand. And I was like, dude, that's right up my alley. I think it was like $12 or $12.50 an hour. And he said, he asked, do I know how to weld or anything like that? And I was like, no, dude, I'm ready to work though. If you're willing to teach me, I'll do anything you ask me to. So, and he said, great, dude, let's do it. So he hired me on. The guy's name was Nate Nielsen. Little shout out. That dude's a beast.
Shout out, Nate. Yes.
Yeah. And so he hired me on, and I worked my guts out for Nate, and he would always look out for everybody in the shop. Dude was a pretty sweet dude, and just always looking out. Like if you couldn't call in to Nate. Like if you tried to call in, he'd like, oh, weather's real bad. I can't get out of my driveway. He's the type of leader that would be like, dude, I'm on my way. I'm coming to get you. You're coming to work, But yeah, so that's kind of how it started. Is I was just in there just washing trucks, and the other mechanics in the shop, they were cool, and I just tried to help, all the time. So like if they're if the truck was, they were working on a truck, they got to change a tire or whatever, I'd be like, hey man, let me throw the jack stands under there for you, just trying to help, because if I didn't have anything to do, I just stayed busy. And Nate was big on staying busy, so he was always making sure everybody was busy and working, and that was his job, so I just tried to help. If I seen him rebuilding the engine, I'd be like, hey man, can I wash those parts in the parts washer for you, and when you're out there trying to help them, they're going to teach you a thing, this is what we do with this, and this is what this is for, I didn't know really anything, I never really even changed a battery in my car or anything 15 years ago,
That's nuts. I mean,
Yeah.
to move to where, and we'll talk about where you are current day, but that's super impressive. Now, I'm curious with what you talked about staying busy. I remember in my time in a shop, that was one thing where if the manager walked out in the shop and you were just standing there, you felt like
Yeah.
your heart sank, right? Like,
Yeah.
like it wasn't even like you were intentionally just standing there. Maybe you just had like a little time in between or something. But if they caught you just standing there, you're like, oh no, I look like an idiot.
Yeah. And a good foreman or a good manager will hit you with some kind of saying, you know what I mean? That they, some kind of shop saying, usually they're halfway vulgar, so probably not good for a podcast, but yeah, they'll hit you with something. They'll hit you with some kind of saying, yeah, you're going to retire over there or something, something along those lines, so.
Yeah. And I think it's hard when you're a young tech because I think your intentions, for the most part, I know there are some that are screwing around now on their phones or whatever, but for the most part, I think you're trying to stay busy or try to look busy, but sometimes you just like wear yourself out mentally trying to come up with the next thing to do, and especially like when the shop's slow and you're like, I've already swept the floor like 3 times. I'm not sure what else I'm supposed to do here, and you're almost afraid to go ask somebody, and that's
Yeah.
it's kind of a weird spot to be in.
Yeah, and one of Nate's favorite deals at that shop, they had the shop drains, like they had big long shop drains that went all the way down
Clean them out, get the shovel out.
Oh man.
That's the worst on a hot day. It
Oh,
smells terrible. Not
oh
great.
yeah. Yeah, that was his favorite. So if you didn't have anything, if you couldn't find yourself something to do and you had to go ask Nate to give you something to do, he would come up with some doozies. Like we pull all the lights out one at a time and then take the light shades down and clean them all up, put it all back together. Oh man.
It's a good manager. Honestly, like that's the stuff that I think you knew in the back of your head. You're like, oh, if I go ask, I know what's coming. Like
Yeah.
it's not going to be a fun job that's coming next.
Yeah, so that's why I always just went to the text and be like, hey man, let me help you do this, let me do that. Let me do something. But Nate was he was cool though, because if he saw me busy, he that's all he cared about. So if I was helping a tech, he was cool with that.
Yeah.
And then basically it segued from being the wash hand to being like a lube type tech, would be the best way to describe it. I didn't have any tools, like literally zero tools when I went there. And I was like, I told Nate, he's like, well, why don't you go grease that truck up, and I'm like, I don't know how to do any of that. And he goes, well, just go over there and try it. This is what a grease zerk looks like. That's literally like, I had greased trucks in the Marine Corps, so I knew like kind of what I was going to do, but like Humvees and semi trucks are totally different things,
Yeah.
So, but I kind of had a basic idea. So I got the grease gun, I got under there and I just started greasing things. And then Nate would come over and look and see if I missed anything. And then he would tell me, okay, well, this is where you're supposed to grease everything. And luckily that fleet, they were all W900. So it was like every truck was the same. So it like you could figure it out pretty quick. And so same with the trailers, he tried to pull a fast one on me every once in a while. He sent me under a trailer, an old trailer from like the 60s, and it had wedge brakes. And I don't know if you're familiar with the way those are set up, but there's nowhere in there for you to put any grease. Right. So he'd be like, well, go get that trailer greased up. And I come back, I'm like, hey man, I can't find no grease zerks. Get back over there and get it greased up, Just get you messing with you.
I think that's something kind of fun about our industry in general is some of the joking around, some of the fun times in a shop. I think that's stuff that stays with you forever. I know just a quick story from my experience in a shop. I was working at my dad's shop in high school, and we grew up in a small town, really, really small town, and we had a local radio station, and like just a, local country radio station. It was like the only one that came in our shop at the time.
Right.
And so I used to, one of the veteran techs in the shop was this, probably mid 30s, 40-year-old single guy. And so we called him a hoop. And so I would call the radio station and request songs like once a week to hoop from his secret admirer. And so they would come over the
Nice.
over the shop speakers, and so some of that stuff is just the stuff that you never forget. Like that's the cool stuff about our business. I think that I'm sure there's camaraderie in other industries as well, but ours just feels like there's a lot of that and a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's pretty epic though.
Yeah. I asked him if he remembered that. I saw him like a year ago and asked him. He's like, "Oh, I can't."
That's
say
the
what
best.
he told me on here, but he didn't think it was quite as funny as I did. But he got back at me over and over and over again, so it didn't matter. But so talk to me a little bit about transition from military life into civilian life as it related to a shop, because there's a transition there in general. And I've had other guests on in the past where we've talked about that transition and the difficulties that come along with that. But it is a real challenge, right? I mean, it's not like you just up and leave the Marine Corps and then all of a sudden you're just in normal life. It's different.
So I feel like that process took a couple of years. It was hard to go from the military lifestyle, which is all very structured, to like now you can do whatever you want, like you're your own person, because you feel like you're not your own person when you're enlisted in the military, right? I'm sure the other ones feel that way, but I know for the Marine Corps, felt like that's all I did, and I ate, breathed and slept Marine Corps, so it was didn't really go out into town or nothing. I did, go to bars and stuff when I was old enough, but it's all very structured. If your pay's there, the doctor is all there, everything's on base. You don't really have to go out and do anything. So I feel like it was all really structured. And so then when you go out into the real world, it's a lot different. Like I really only had like a cell phone bill and an insurance on my car bill. I owned my car. And so then you've got rent and utilities and all of these things that I wasn't paying then, and then a young family, so I felt like it really took a couple of years to really, you mature really quickly as a person, but like you don't, those life skills, you kind of miss out on some of those life skills that if I'd have been in college and had bills and things like that, I feel like I maybe would have been a little different, maybe, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting that you say that, because I haven't really heard that perspective of it before, where it's not so much even like we always talk about the language barrier, when you're going from the military to civilian life, where, it is like you're talking a different language altogether. But then, I didn't think about it from the aspect of you don't have bills, you don't have that kind of stuff, you don't have like normal civilian life stuff when you're in the military. Your focus is singular. Your focus is on getting better in that area, not necessarily your home finances. So that is that's really intriguing. I never thought of that.
Yeah, especially like young Marines are like your first tour. So like your first 4 years, you're a young person. You're, after 4 years, you join when you're, some people like 17. You can go in when you're 17. And some people 18 mainly, but so then you're 22 or 21 by the end of your first tour, and that's young. 21, 22, dude, you just got to go to the bar, you know what I mean?
Right.
So
where were you at, like in the military? Where all did you go?
I mainly was in Camp Lejeune. We do lots of training all over, and I was a Hollywood Marine. That's what they call that. So I was on the West Coast. So we call them Hollywood
San
Marines.
Diego, or where is
Yeah. So that's where I went to boot camp. And then my duty station was in Camp Lejeune. So.
All right. Did you watch Top Gun yet? the new one?
No, I haven't watched it yet. I want to watch it. I like Tom Cruise though.
Yeah.
So, I like Tom Cruise.
That's funny. Just the San Diego setting.
Yeah, yeah,
It's that kind of struck that with me. But uh, to get back on track here a little bit, I
yeah,
think
yeah.
when we talk about mentorship and what it means to you, I think in our conversations that we've had, one of the things that really stuck out to me was that you had somebody early on in your career that took you under their wing and really was able uh, to do it differently than I think a lot of other managers do. And I think it had, based on our conversations, a pretty big impact on you and your
Yeah.
prideful in mentoring young people now. So uh, I want you to talk a little bit about him a little bit further, right? Like, what was it about him that was so different, and what was it that made him, to this day, made you loyal to him, or like even be able to respect him at that level?
Yeah, so it's really two, or kind of a, it takes a village, but I feel like that first shop that I went to, it was it takes a village kind of thing, like, and I go back to Nate a little bit because, Nate taught me all kinds of stuff, how to weld, and really set a good example of what a leader is supposed to be, and all the welding stuff, and just, like I said, he would come get you. You know what I mean? If you called in and you were like, "Hey man, I can't get out of my driveway," and try to give him an excuse of why you can't come into work, he's like, "I'm on my way to come get you." And that's just the type of person he was. And I feel like that I needed that as a young man coming into a civilian lifestyle. That really kind of, I needed that structure from him. You know, and I'm forever loyal to Nate. I still talk to him regularly, and then he had, at that time, he had a guy that named Ted Wren, shout out Ted.
Dad?
Ted worked at WildTech as the advanced diesel instructor years ago. And Ted, he's an older feller, and so even at that time, and so he didn't really get around real good, but he was a real good, he knew anything and everything about a truck that you could possibly imagine. And so he taught me building differentials and building transmissions and how to do clutches and engine work, all of those things at that fleet shop. And really, all the detail orientated things that I was already, the Marine Corps made me very detail oriented, but he kind of lasered in on that because that's the type of engine builder he is, or you always want to take it a step further, you know what I mean, when you can.
Yeah.
And so clean work is good work, and that was really a Ted thing, is Ted really enforced that with me, that even though we work at a fleet shop doesn't mean that we can't do dealer level type work.
Sure.
And so he was really big on, like, this is how you would do it. And we, just because we're at a fleet, we don't shortcut things. We don't halfway do it. We're going to do it just like that. And so that whole 5 years I worked at that fleet shop, every repair, I tried to do it a little bit better each time I had to do that same repair. How can I make this just a little bit cleaner? How can I make it a little bit better? And in my mind, I was always thinking, I'm going to a dealer, so I need to practice like a dealer tech would be. Right. And so that's kind of the mindset that I had. And that's kind of the way Ted was, because he's like, dude, you're not going to work here forever. Like, I'd love it if you stayed here for a million years, but you're not. You know what I mean?
What was it about the dealer that was like that shining star that you wanted to go there?
Well, you can lean it on the Marine Corps a little bit too, because we're the best, right? That's the way we think. We're the best at what we do.
The toughest.
And
right.
Yes,
exactly,
right.
Yeah.
So I want to be the best at what I do. And, that dealer from the fleet, looking in, is like, those guys are the baddest dudes around, right? I'm the baddest dude around. I want to be part of that. Right. So that's what I was thinking. I want to be the baddest dude around. And so I started looking, where's the baddest dudes work at? Because that's where I want to be, because I want to have that. When you work at a shop that has a good reputation, you have a good reputation, so when you're like, hey, you're at the barbecue and dude's like, hey, where are you working at? I'm like, oh, dude, I work over at wherever. And there, he's like, oh man, I heard that all the ballers work over there. You know what I mean? And you're like, well, yeah, you know.
There's so much pride that goes into that, right? Because you're busting your tail every day. You want to be known as the best, or is that you're at a level that is adequate for a place like that, and I think you're right. I think there's a lot of techs that really desire to be in that realm, right? Like it's almost a respect thing and a measure of your ability to be able to get into a place like that.
Yeah. And so, and that's kind of how I segued from the fleet to the dealer is I really just practiced. Like when I was at the fleet, I was thinking in the back of my mind, this is how I've got to do it to get there. And luckily I had people like Nate and Ted that knew I wasn't going to be at the fleet forever. And Nate, without me even really knowing it, was training me how to run that shop. He was giving me those leadership guidance, that mentorship to run the shop. And so eventually what happened one day is, he comes in and he's like, hey, tomorrow's my last day, dude. I'm like, what? And he goes, I taught you everything you need to know to run the shop. See ya.
Wow.
And he loaded up. And I said, well, where are you going? I wasn't ready. I'm not ready. He says, well, I'm going over to Kenworth. And I was like, oh, makes sense, Yeah. And so he went over to Kenworth, and our lead tech, which also had a heavy influence, guy's named Colin. Shout out Colin. Gonna shout out all the people today.
Hey, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. So he, the two of them went over to Kenworth. And I was like, man, I want to go to Kenworth too. You know what I mean? But I felt like, hey, it's an opportunity for me to really step up and help the shop. And I'm not ready to be a dealer tech yet. I didn't have any enough confidence in myself that I could go work at a dealership level at that time. So probably like the next year and a half, I really just focused in the back, like I was saying earlier, I really just focused on, this is what I need to do to get to that level. I need to work harder. I need to push it harder. I need to learn more, and I need to be the best that I can be here before I take that next step.
Is there an opportunity for fleets to have that reputation? I think you talked about it from the standpoint of being able to go to a dealer. Are there opportunities for that fleet that's out there listening right now that they want to be known as the baddest dudes in town? They want to be known as really the top of their game, but maybe they don't have access to some of the manufacturer training or tooling or some of that. So are there opportunities for a fleet to distinguish themselves? And I'm picking on fleet a little bit here, but this could be for anybody, right? Maybe it's a lesser reputation shop or dealership, anybody that's out there, but like how do they work their way to get to that point?
Right. So I feel like there's some key ingredients, right? So when I thought in my area, small town, Wyoming, right? When I thought I want to go work at the dealer, my thoughts might have been different if I had thought, okay, where are the baddest dudes in town work? That was my first thing. Where do the best technicians work at? Where do the technicians that get the most pay work at? That was my second thing. I want to make money. I'm hungry.
Well, what do you think draws the baddest dudes, right? Like the best of the best. It right. Starts with money. The other stuff is really nice, and the other benefits are great to have. But probably at the end of the day, it's money that's going to draw.
Right.
So if that fleet out there goes out and pays above everybody else, they probably don't have the same problem that they have now. Right.
It all starts with money, right? But so I feel like when I was like, okay, I'm ready. This is a perfect way to segue into when I decided I was ready, because now I'm ready to start looking. And so these are the things that I was looking for. And it, like you said, to those fleets and other shops or whatever that are out there and wondering how how do we be that person? Well, if you think for a second that not every tech in town knows what your techs make, you're wrong.
100%. I say this all the time. It drives me crazy. Everybody's trying to be so secretive, and I'm like, it's out there. Like
Everybody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody knows what your benefits are. Everybody knows what you pay your techs. Everybody knows if you train your techs. Everybody in town knows. You know, it's if you think that your top performing tech doesn't have a best friend at the shop across town, you're wrong too.
Yeah.
You know, because if like I work at a Kenworth dealer and I have friends that work at Peterbilt. Sometimes I need help with a Peterbilt and sometimes they need help with the Kenworth, and we help each other out, you know. And the same thing I would assume is, you know, with Honda and Toyota. Your boy works over at Toyota, he hollers at you and he's like, hey dude. And then next thing you know, they're like, hey, you want to meet up at lunch? You say, yeah, let's have a drink or whatever. Let's meet up and have a sandwich. And they're like, hey man, how's the shop over there? You guys busy? They're like, oh yeah, we're swamped, you know. And then you're like, man, I'm stacked up too. You know what I mean? And you're just shooting the bull because it's your friend. And he's like, hey man, I'm going to training next week. Oh heck yeah. You've been going to a lot of training? Next thing you know, everybody knows, you know, you that's how those things go. And
just a natural conversation. Yeah.
It's just, that's the way it is. So, you know, I don't, you can't be secretive about it. It is what it is. Everybody knows. And so, you know, that's what I'm saying is like, I knew that cat dealer that we had in town, those guys, you couldn't get in that shop. They paid well. And the only way you was getting in there is if somebody died or retired. And I wanted to work there, but like I said, there wasn't any openings. There hadn't been any openings for a long time. I'd kept my eye open for a while and asked around, and everybody's like, nah, man, you either got to know a guy or somebody's got to die, or, you know.
The paradigm shift right there, right? Where you go from the shop that's desperate to get people and is, you know, in my opinion, a lot of times the messaging that they put behind it seems desperate, and I think techs can smell that all day long.
That's like a blood in the water, brother.
It is. Whereas like that cat dealer that you're talking about that had set the precedent that this is a tough place to get into, and it's because we treat our people really well. They get paid well, they get trained well, we give them adequate tooling. Like we give them everything they need to do their job. It's just a completely different viewpoint from the shoes of a technician. And I think that's what so many people miss out on, is like, they're so worried about people stealing their people. I'm like, you're worried about the wrong thing. Worry about creating an environment that's so great that everybody wants to come work for you.
Right. That's exactly right. You know, it's everybody in town wanted to work there, you know, and then also the Kenworth dealer that we had, you know, they were known for having the top pay and really training the crap out of their techs. And that's why, you know, those guys that I knew had went there. And, but I was like, man, that's, you know, I talked to them, how's it looking over there? You guys, they didn't have any openings when I was ready. And, I really wanted to make the move, and they didn't have any openings. So, a Volvo dealer opened up over there. And, I thought, oh man, that's a ticket. You know what I mean? New dealer. Maybe the expectations might be just a little bit less. And so I got in on the ground floor over there, worked there for a couple of years. And that's really where my mentorship kind of shined.
Right.
Because even back then, you couldn't, mid-level technicians, 3 to 5 year techs, which are nearly impossible to get right now, were few and far between then. And so I had to start training kids up. And so that was kind of where that mentorship really started to shine. And I really started to develop a mental checklist of what I needed to do. And each technician I trained was better than the last, you know. And I was like, okay, this works, this doesn't work. And I just kind of just started going down the list. And
were you taking things that you had learned from the guys that had got you in and taken you under their wing, and kind of implementing and maybe putting your own spin on it for the techs that were coming under you?
Yeah, so it was a mix of the leadership stuff that I learned in the Marine Corps, and the leadership style that I learned from Nate and our lead tech in that shop, Colin. And I really blended those all together into my own thing. And then I feel like in life, you meet great people, right? And when you meet someone great and they make an influence on you, some people, they have things that are bad about them too, right? Nobody's perfect.
Right.
And so I've always been really good at being able to take that thing that somebody's really great at and absorb that, and then just kind of forget the things that I know that that person is bad about. Especially in our field, you know, if somebody's really good at diagnosing something, I want to be in it. You know, how would you do it? How did you get there? What did you see? What did you look for first? What did you know? And I'm asking 100 questions. So I take that checklist that they did, and then I take it. That guy might be terrible at swapping out parts, or he's got poor repair quality or whatever, but he is exceptional at this one thing. And everybody, I feel like all the technicians I've worked with over the years, they're probably exceptional at maybe one or two things. So if you can find that exceptional thing about the guy or girl in the bay next to you, take that thing and make it yours, you know?
Well, I think you're able to see that then with the people that are coming under you, right? Like where you see and can kind of pinpoint maybe a little bit of you can tell they're pretty strong in this area, but
Oh
not
yeah.
strong there. And I think, like, I feel like when I was growing up in the industry, everybody felt like you had to be good at everything. And I think we're getting a little bit better at understanding that there's nobody that's going to be perfect at everything. And there are some that are just excellent diagnostic people. There's, they're also excellent at the actual repair, but those are becoming they're becoming more rare.
Right.
And I think being able to help a young person understand what their strengths are is so vital, because that's how they're going to build confidence when they know that they actually are good at something, and that
Right.
they have a skill set to build off of. I think there's so many shops that maybe miss that point because they focused on how they screwed up an oil change, yet they don't even know that they have some level of diagnostic ability, and they're kind of
right. You got to feed it. You got to feed it. And you got to figure it out quick. That's where when you take they can be older too, but let's call them kids just for all intents and purposes. When you get a new person in and you just throw them out there to the wolves, what do you know about them? You know what I mean? You gotta have a mentor type tech in your shop that's good at that kind of stuff. And I feel like maybe some of the stuff gets lost in the flat rate stuff because they don't have the time to do that. I've always worked hourly, so I don't take advantage of that, but that's important to me because my quality of work doesn't suffer, my diagnostic stuff doesn't suffer, and I'm able to take the time to do what I do, and that's training technicians and making quality repairs each and every time. So they've got to be able to dig in with that person and figure out, because there's cues. When you're working with them, you're gonna see right away, okay, this person's really detail oriented. You put a car on the lift, or you got a truck and you're on your creeper and you're under it, and you guys are under it, and you're like, hey man, do you see anything? What are you looking at? And they're cross-eyed and they don't even see nothing. Was there an oil leak right here? What do you think? Where does it kind of look like where it's from? You just start quizzing them, see how their brain works. Or if you're swapping a part out and they're right there with you, I like to give them a step-by-step instruction just from me. Yeah. Like, hey, I want you to do this, and I want you to do this, step 1, 2, and 3. I'll be back in like 20 minutes. And then I go off and do what I'm supposed to be doing. And then I come back and I check on them. And I'm like, hey, where are you at? If they've just went off and forget about what I'm trying to tell them, it's like, this ain't gonna work, So that's the thing right there. Can they follow instruction? That's a big deal. And then as they progress, I always just I'll add steps. Okay. And I want them to kind of do it from memory, because when we get the better we get, the more things we have to do for memory, Yeah. We always have the repair instruction to go back to, but we look at a repair instruction and I've got a page in my mind. The only thing I'm going to go back and check is Was that 150 foot-pounds? Yep. I'm going back to the truck and I'm
Right.
doing what I'm doing, you know? So I like to hit them with that 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth. And you're going to figure out real quick, is this person mechanical in nature? Because double wrenching, we've all been working on stuff forever, and we take that for granted, that, you know, how to use leverage to your advantage.
Right.
These new people don't understand that. Some of them do. They get it right away, and they'll be like, oh, you'll see them looking at it and trying to figure out how they're going to do it, and then boom, you know, and they get it. Or I can put a pry bar on the end of that, and then I can use leverage this way to push down on my ratchet or whatever. And so you got to look for that kind of stuff. Okay, this person's going to be mechanical right away. This person going to be good at fixing things. Or you know, I trained a female mechanic, and I thought, man, she's going to be real good diagnostic tech, because very quickly I figured out that what she was interested in was, because that's something I want them to be. I want them to be interested and passionate about what they're working on. Some people are passionate about engines, and some people are passionate about transmissions, and some people, you know, drivetrain and suspension work. And so you really gotta figure the person out too. You know, you gotta quiz them, and what do you like?
Yeah.
You know, and what she was really good at was understanding how systems work together. You know, EGR systems, and how what is that doing to the engine, and how is it affecting the after treatment system downstream. And she could remember those items, and I was like, you know, she was good with the computers. She could get hooked up easily. If she didn't get discouraged, and she would swap things out and try different things and try different adapters before she wouldn't come to me until she'd already tried it all. She's already tried it all, and now I can't get hooked up. And I've come over there, and then like a wizard, get it hooked right in, you know?
Well, that right there, when you're looking at mentorship and being able to coach a younger person up, the fact that she had the initiative to do all of that stuff ahead of time. And, you know, I think that's one of the common things I see in a shop where veteran techs get frustrated, is that they'll try one thing and then go back to the veteran tech and then ask them, and then that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And they go back, and then maybe they don't even listen to what the advice that the veteran tech said. And then it just, the veteran tech gets very frustrated. So I've talked to young techs about that all the time. I'm like, listen, take initiative. If you don't know how to take initiative, ask somebody, because that's something that's a lot of times intuitive, but for some people it's not. And if you can just understand, like, okay, what are those things that I need to try? And
right.
You know, even if it is going back to a service manual and being able to look it up, you know, I think I'm curious with your thought on this. When a shop has so much pressure on it to produce in terms of revenue, I think it puts pressure on that young person to grow faster than a lot of times they're able to, right?
Yes. Oh yeah. You left that open-ended for me?
Yeah, well, and because I think I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's something that I've seen a lot, where there's pressure on the veteran techs. I think sometimes the young tech feels that, right? They feel like they hear the veteran tech saying, oh, you know, this is what I produced this week. And the young tech is like, I didn't even get close to that. That person's frustrated about themselves. What am I? Yeah.
So the best way to, if you're a mentor right now, and you're looking at that type of situation, you should keep those cards to yourself, because it's not about you. It's not about what you made this week. It's not about how many hours you pulled this week. It's not about what your labor sales were this week. It's about them. What were their labor sales? What is your expectation for your mentee? I set a weekly expectation. I set an efficiency and productivity expectation. The reason being is because even though
for the
my
company, for the
person that I'm mentoring, my company doesn't have an expectation on me for how I'm mentoring them, but I have one for myself. And so what I try to do is I set a sales goal with my mentee, and then I set an efficiency goal and a productivity goal for my mentee, and then we work towards it. And it's important that you put it right right within reach, so that they'll work, and you got to be there to support them, because they're going to fall down. They're not going to make it for a little bit. You get that, but that expectation's got to be right where they can get it. And then you're there to support them and push them and grow them and build that confidence, because when they get that first one, boom. Yeah. And they see it, it all kind of comes together, because now that confidence is building. The confidence in you as their mentor is building, that loyalty, that confidence, all of those things. And then that next week, you're like, I want 5K more. You can do it. Yeah. I believe in you. I'm here for you. And I'm gonna be here to raise you up. Let's do it.
Well, and you're built, the small wins built in every week, right? When you're
the small wins build the confidence. That's the key. That's the key.
Yes.
It's always a small win. It's small win with diagnostics, right? You're training that gal or that guy, and they're going to be good at diagnostics, and you're like, okay, I know they have done this diagnostic with me before, so now I'm just gonna send them, go check it out. And then they're like, oh, these are the codes that I got, and oh, well, where would you go from there? Knowing that you guys just looked at that last week, and they're like, well, I was thinking maybe I should check this and this. All right, well, check it out. See, let me know. I'll be over here. And then they check it out and they figure it out. And then they come back and they're pumped. Check it out. I figured it out. And you're like, well, heck yeah. Fist bump, dude. Nice work.
Right.
The WrenchWay app helps technicians in the automotive, diesel, and heavy equipment industries by making it easier to search for jobs, highlighting the best shops to work at, and gathering feedback and ideas on how the industry can be improved. The app is completely free to use and can be downloaded in the App Store or on Google Play. We've included a link in the show notes with more information.
Right.
It's all small wins. Yeah.
And I don't think we do a great job of that in most shops, of celebrating small wins, because I've said this for years, that is the downfall of a lot of young techs, is that they're not able to gain confidence fast enough to be able to actually do things. And what happens is a manager gets frustrated. And a lot of times I think the manager has some level of responsibility for that person failing. One, you're the one that hired them, but then two, maybe you didn't adequately train them to where they should be. And it's frustrating because, even for my own story, I feel like I was a little bit that way, where it was like, if you lose confidence early when you're working on cars, equipment, trucks, whatever it is, it's easy, because then that next thing you get beat up in, you're taking the last job that you got beat up on, you take that into the next job, which is going to impact the next job, because it for some people, it sticks with them. And if you're not helping them build confidence and getting towards a goal, they're going to struggle. And I love your approach to that, because I think that is so smart, to getting a person to get that confidence built up and not expect them to do advanced diagnostics in the second week in the shop.
That's the thing, is you're creating a hammer for 5 years from now, right? You're not creating a hammer for next month or next quarter or next year. I'm creating hammers for 5 years from now. I'm creating technicians that can be service managers. I take all of these things. We're like at the bottom tier here of my mentorship, because this is a full deal. They can call me after work. They can call me 5 years from now. I don't care. And we're just touching the iceberg, brother. But I want to jump back real quick, because you were talking about that manager needs to take a little bit of the responsibility, right? And that brought something to my mind, is that if you're a shop and you're out here trying to do something with cementers in your shop, you really need to, this is a double win here. You need to have your mentor involved in the hiring of the mentees.
Yes.
Okay. Full stop, front to back. Like, they need to be involved in looking at the resumes with the manager, because that puts more personal pride on the mentor to want this to succeed, because now I put my stamp on it. If I put my stamp on a mentee, and I'm like, that's the guy or the gal that I want to train, by God, they're going to make it, because I'm going to give it everything I got, because I put my name on it, right? I put my name on it, my reputation. And so it's just like if your buddy's like, hey man, can you help me get a job over at your work? And you're like, nah, fam, I don't think you're built for it. You know what I mean? Because I ain't put my name on it, you know?
You are 100% right. And then you've got buy-in from the mentor right off the bat, where I've seen it in shops where somebody might be a mentor, but they're not fully bought into the person that they're actually training and coaching up,
Right.
right? Like it's so
You got to be in it. You got to be in it because you're going to have a relationship with that person from the very get-go. Like if I go, the way I got brought into the mentorship really heavily too, like I had a good thing going. And then when I went to Kenworth, I had a fantastic service manager, and he wanted me to be in it from the get-go, from the beginning. So we would go to the hiring events at the college, and that's when I really got into it. I was really pumped about it then, because it's like, now, like I said, it's my name's on it. Like that's the kid I want. That's the one. Get him, whatever it takes. Get that person, and I'm gonna train them up, and they're gonna be a hammer. And like I said, I'm looking at 5-year hammers. I'm looking at guys that'll be foremans in 5 to 8 years. Those are the guys and gals that I want to train, the best, the best possible ones that can be out there. You know, but sometimes they're not always going to be a stud. You know, that's something you're going to run into. Mentors out there, they're not all going to be amazing. So that's where you got to focus on that thing that they're good at, that one thing. Figure out that one thing. They're good at swapping parts. That dude could do, or gal could do an engine harness in 5 hours, and it's a 12-hour job or whatever, because they're lanky or whatever. So you got to find that small thing that they're good at and focus in, and then really drive it home, build that confidence little bit by little bit. And then, you know, when you're done with your mentorship at 8 months or 6 to 8 months or a year or whatever you guys decide to do, and then you cut them loose on the floor, you got that one thing, right? The foreman knows it. The service writer knows it. That guy or gal is good at that thing. Let's get them on it. Let's make some money. You know?
I really like that approach. Now, I want to talk, as we get about 10 minutes left on the podcast.
Yeah.
Talk about where this comes from. Why do you like being a mentor? Why do you like, I know in prior conversations, we talked about legacy and the importance of kind of leaving a trail behind you of really, really outstanding people. Where did that come from? Because I don't feel like every tech is that way.
I don't know, man. That's a good one. I feel like, you know, there's that saying is kind of a, I don't know, buzz saying or whatever. You see those
kind of a buzzword type of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think a long time ago, a few years ago, when I first got on LinkedIn, I seen a deal, and it was like, and correct me if you've heard it, is the measure of a leader is how many leaders you create. Right.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, that's pretty serious business, you know, and that's the legacy right there. So like all these guys and gals out there that I've trained, and they're out there doing fantastic. You know, I talk to them and keep up with them, and, you know, some of them still call and, you know, hey, I got a job offer for assistant service manager. Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Good for you. I'm proud of you, you know. And one thing about being a mentor is it's made me a better father, and being a father has made me a better mentor.
Interesting.
And so that's one thing I feel like it really fuels some of this success in the mentorship part, because, you know, I'm not a real sensitive person, and I'm not, the Marine Corps kind of made me that way. And it's hard to show affection and feeling and be open about my feelings. And so I struggle with that, and I work really hard at that, because I want my sons to know that it's okay to show your emotion in a healthy way. And so one thing, you know, I feel like people and fathers out there don't do enough is tell their sons and their daughters that they're proud of them.
Yeah.
And so, and there's a lot of mentees out there that when you hit them with that, I'm real proud of you, it chokes you up. It chokes me up thinking about it right now.
Same,
you know,
same. It gave me
you know,
goosebumps.
Yeah. And you hit him with that, man. I'm real proud of you. You know, I'm beaming with pride at how successful you are and how great you're doing. And those are things they don't get from the service manager. Those are things they're not getting from their branch managers or their vice presidents or any of those people. You're the only one that can give that to them. And so, and they may not have ever got that growing up even, you know? And so,
especially in our industry.
oh yeah. And you got to remember, they're going to do stupid things and they're going to do things that upset you. But you know, it's our job as mentors to bring them up, correct them, get them back on track, you know, just be out there supporting.
And I think one thing that techs underestimate is how much weight that carries. That might carry as much or more weight than the owner of the company coming out and saying the same thing, because they see you day in and day out, and they know how hard you work and how good you are at what you do. And so for somebody like you or any other veteran tech that's really good at their job out there, to go up to a young person and tell them that they're proud of them, I mean, that hits at its core, right? And especially like in our industry, that's not just a given. You're not just getting a whole bunch of ads all the time, right? Like I think that the weight that carries when a veteran tech pulls somebody aside and says that they're proud of them, that might outweigh what anybody else in the shop can say.
Dude, serious business. You know, don't hey, mentors out there, don't be handing out those "I'm proud of you" just all willy nilly. But you got to hit them when they count. You know what I mean? You'll know it because it might be just a heck of a day, and they're struggling through a project and they're really grinding through it. It's a job, right? And everybody gets one of them jobs, and especially junior technicians, and they're really grinding on one, and you could see it, and that's when you got to hit it. You know, give them that extra confidence that, you know, they need to know that you have every confidence that they can complete that and get through it and grind it out. Hit them with the, you know, hey, this is a grind, you know, this is a project, and there's going to be days like this, and I'm not always going to be there to help you, and you're going to have to grind it out on your own. But right now I'm here, and I just want you to know, proud of you.
Man, that's the best stuff. You're leaving a legacy out there. You're impacting a lot of lives, and you know, from an industry standpoint, and viewing you from afar, I think you're doing some great stuff. And I appreciate you taking some time today to join us for the podcast. A lot of incredible insight from the shoes of a technician. I mean, I just think that's so important that we get that message out there, and appreciate everything you're doing out there.
Oh yeah, brother. I appreciate you helping us normal dudes get our and gals get our 5 minutes of spotlight, you know.
It won't be your last, I guarantee that. We'll get you back on again, but appreciate you joining us, and look forward to the next time.
All right, brother.